Mindshifters, this is the video, and just Paula, because I probably will post it on both of my channels. So let's talk about just the elephant in the room, because you all see I'm going into my financial management series, or Mind Shift to Financial Health. But I can't go into that without talking about just everything that's happened to me in the last 2 years and just my entire life. A lot of people are asking a question: how did I get into um, over $500,000 in debt? And how did I wake up and almost be 240 pounds? And just a lot of other things that had happened. Now, let me just tell you this. I woke up about 2 years ago and I wondered the same thing. I finally took a look in the mirror and I was like, how did I get here? So we're going to discuss two stories in the Bible. My son and I are studying the New Testament right now. But we're going to talk about two stories, and then I'm going to talk about some things that can happen to us. And not spoiler alert, but disclaimer: I'm a Christian, so my perspective, I'm pretty much often come from that perspective about things, especially now at this point in my life. My faith is very important to me. So there are two stories in the Bible that just speak to me. There's sort of the genesis of just who I am and what I want to and part of my purpose. The two stories are both are from the New Testament. It's Jesus is giving parable. One of the parables about the prodigal son, and then it's again in New Testament. It's in Acts 20, and it's about this guy named Eutychus. So this young man named Eutychus. So I'm just going to kind of draw parallels from both story, give you a brief synopsis. Again, I'm not a theologian. I'm just a regular everyday Jane who is just enjoying learning God's word and how to apply it to our lives and how to improve the quality of our lives. So the first story, let's talk about Luke. So in Luke, Jesus gives a parable. He's talking to the disciples, the Pharisees, and some others, and it's about the prodigal son. This guy, I think he was well off. He had two sons. The younger son asked for his inheritance early, and as soon as he got it, the father, gave it to him. He went off to a foreign land and he squandered his money, and he ends up to the point where he's actually caring for hogs. He's like watching pigs, and he gets to a point where he starts to wonder. He's so hungry and has gotten in such a bad state that he's even contemplating eating, or wondering, how does the food that the hogs are eating, like kind of wondering, like, that kind of looks tasty type of thing. So he ends up at the Bible talks, and I'm paraphrasing here, so please, Bible thumpers, this is probably not the channel for you anyway, or channels. He ends up coming to himself. And for me, I definitely just resonate with that, because I came to myself. Like, I woke up, and I talk about being on autopilot and in this, in this spiritual coma. Just, I came to myself, and I know I came to myself through prayer, through just the love and support from friends and family, or just co-workers, people come in your life for certain seasons. But I came to myself, and he ends up going home, and he ends up saying, in his mind, like, I'd rather be a servant in my father's house. So I love this part of, that particular parable, because the father had to have been looking for him every day, and he actually meets him, and he greets him, and he celebrates his arrival. He covers him. He asks for his servants to bring him a ring, that again, giving his identity, like, you're my son. And it's talked about the older son being upset, and the father saying, hey, we have to be happy that he's come home. So the whole point of that, there's so many things you can pick apart with that parable that I love. But I love the fact that he came to himself, and I love the fact that the father didn't spend time like chastising him about everything he did wrong. He was just so happy to see him. All right. That's just, that story just gives me, it just comforts me. The second story is, and I think this will be the title of the video, I think, is I Am Eutychus. So, again, in the New Testament, I think both authors of Luke and is Luke, and also who he authored Acts as well, or and it had to be someone who was a close companion of Paul. Anywho, Paul was, as we know, or if you don't, and again, I'm not trying to get into any theological debates with anybody, but he's sort of known as sort of starting what I guess what we consider the modern day church, or the genesis of it. So he was trying to go off and spread God's word, the gospel, and I think he was on his third missionary trip, and I think there was a bounty on his head or something, so he came back through, I guess, Greece. So he stopped off in the city or the town of Troas, and he was given almost what we consider like a revival, and he was kind of like given like what we consider like a revival, and he at this church. So he was at this church speaking, and he's trying to get everything he can and instill in these churches to make sure that they're strong and they're sturdy, and that they continue the message of God's love and Christ, and things like that, and salvation, faith. And he ends up, they talk about this young man, and who was listening. He was in church listening to the sermon, and they talk about him falling out the window and dying. And Paul stops. He ends up speaking life, breathing life back into this young man Eutychus, and he comes back to life. But I love this story because it lets me know that you can be in the church, you can be going to church, you could be tithing, you could be checking all the boxed that you check, that we checked, or that I checked. I'm going to speak to myself. And you're not hearing, like, the word hasn't absorbed in your spirit, in your heart, in your mind. It's not about perfection. It's not that you're not going to do anything wrong or anything like that. It's about literally letting that word get in your spirit. And you can be not where you need to be. So this talks about physically, he's sitting near a window. So you can make a lot of, assumptions or inferences about that, but he's in the right place, but he's still not where he needs to be, to the point that he falls asleep. Now, people talk about Paul going on and on and on, and so he fell asleep. But that's another thing, understanding your physical health, not just your spiritual health, but your physical health. If you get to a point where you're starting to nod off, like maybe you need to put one finger up and refresh, or because you're still not getting all of the goodness from whatever you're doing. So understanding yourself, taking time to rest, to be present. That's where I'm at in my life, trying to be present in life. And I love that, because that lets me know that you can, again, be in the right place, have all the right people around you, but if it hasn't truly taken hold of your spirit, then you're not going to be able to benefit from all of that. As well as, it's easy to be lulled to sleep even when you have all that. That's why you're constantly renewing your mind. Hence the mind shift, why that's so important. Everything that we do, not just your nutrition or your finances, but everything. It is not about perfection. You're going to constantly be asking the Holy Spirit for assistance, especially the areas that you're weak in. I am very weak in, I love people so much, and I have a few close people that are to my heart, but really allowing them to really taking advantage of the people that God put in my life, it's been a challenge, and I'm working through that to figure out why, and that's a whole nother story. But now we're going to segue into how did I get into the mess that I found myself in? If you look at those two stories, God allowed me to get into a position, even with all of my foolery and just poor decision making, to come to make a really good wage and to really have good ideas. So even if I didn't have this wage, just the way my mind is and the stock that I come from on the West Indian side, trying, always having business ideas, he gave me all the tools that I need to be what we call, quote, successful. And that's thinking more of like, resource wise. And I'm so grateful to him for that. gave me everything that I need to be successful, as far as like being able to care for my family, take care of my family, being able to pour into the church and things like that. So how did you get to a point where I fell this way? And I'll tell you, the lack of knowledge. So not really understanding what the Bible is. And again, I've grown up in church all my life, and because of my grandma, God bless her, God rest her soul, and other people in my family, and we knew the foundation of God and, Jesus and salvation. Again, couldn't quote any scriptures back then, but it's just like we had that in our lives, like that faith and just clinging to it. But as I got older, I never really took the time to really just understand the word of God for myself. I joined this church, First Baptist Church of Glenard. You hear me, I talk about this church all the time. I really didn't want to join this church. I was over at another church in Oxon Hill, like near Eastover, that, I had joined through a friend in high school. I just started going, and then I would go back and forth between that church and my son's father's church. At the time, he was, a believer, and we would go to his church every other Sunday. And so I still didn't understand like the word. I was in part of family ministry and different Bible studies, but really sinking the teeth. Like, what does God say? What is this? So you all hear the acronym basic instructions before leaving Earth. That's, I think, an accurate instruction, like an acronym for the Bible. But it talks about everything. It's like I'm almost 40 and I'm discovering that God gave us instruction and guidance about everything. For us to have not necessarily just the best life, but to be at peace and love and joy and all these things. He just gave us instruction about there will be famine in your life, but if you prepare during the prosperous times, you'll be ready for the famine. And there's some things that we won't understand, illnesses and deaths. But I'm here, like these things about it's like the Bible is the greatest love story ever. Like, I just didn't get that until the experiences that I've had the last, 2 years. And so what I would tell you guys, if you're not grounded in the word or what the principles or Christian principles are telling you, you start to make up your own, theories, your own rules. But the Bible is very clear about everything, including your finances, including the way that we live our lives. It's very clear, and you have to go, really take those principles and figure out a way to apply it to your life. And that's one of the first things. I did not do that. And I started to do this. So I'm going to tell you guys too, who are starting nutrition plans, fitness plans, weight loss plans, whatever the case may be. I even had a plan to be closer with my one friend or two friends in particular. And it seems like just when I made that declaration, it's like my time got literally, and I'm not the best at time management anyway, so it just got crazy. And so things that are simple to people like texting and phone, they're not simple. I've never been into that, and especially with the jobs I've had. So it just seems like as soon as you make declarations to do something, it's like all these obstacles coming your way. That means you gotta push through. And so the second thing is not knowing what the godly principles are, to not really taking the time to get to know God. And that kind of is probably like 1A. That may be the top. Like, really understand, have that relationship grounded with God. Know how he talks to you. It's very important. And I found Dave Ramsey and Michelle Singletary through my church. And I'm going to talk about that another story time, how I was a financial ministry dropout. And as soon as I was getting into the word, I'm like, "Ooh, okay, this pastor was reading the Bible and he tells you to go home and, come back with a healthy discussion." I was distracted with what was going on with my ex-fiance and wanting to be married. I was distracted. I allowed the things that were going on in my life and the people that were in my life to distract me. So when you get distracted, you get derailed from your purpose. So it's almost like I threw all of that to the wind. I dropped out of the financial ministry. I I ended up doing things that were contrary from the principles I was starting to learn. One, I purchased a townhouse. My son and I were in an 800 square feet condo. We were minding our business, doing life in our little hobbit. We were fine. We did not need this townhouse. Am I grateful that God allowed it? Yes, we enjoy it. We take pride in it, but we had a nice little, we call it our little hobbit, our little shire, little hut right in the shire, doing minding our business. So we didn't need this townhouse. Now, there's reasons, and I'll get into that later, other videos. Okay, so one, purchased a townhome. Purchased a townhome that was almost $300,000. Again, all right. Second thing, I went to this Than Merrill, and I know, don't come after me if y'all went to Than Merrill, you made it work, you're a multimillionaire. Don't come for me. Than Merrill, I went there, and this is on my mind. So I went to the Than Merrill, it was like 179 up in Rockville. They like rented out like a hotel, and they had these 3-day classes about how to start real estate investing, because I was trying to find a fast way out of the condo debt, and I was thinking of legacy building for air, because I had just started the college fund again. I was just trying to this, that, and the third. So I ended up getting had, and I'm sorry, that's what I call it a scam, but it's on me. I take responsibility, but they knew I'm weak-minded, or I was weak-minded. I'm not going to claim it now. And just everything that was going on in my life, it was something I had just paid off debt, but I didn't close it. So anyone that's doing the Dave Ramsey plan, that's the one I'm doing, and you are gonna follow me, and I want to help you guys with that. So I signed up for that, which was like over $40,000, because I did the top plan. They had different tiers plans, and then they had their own accounting firm, and there's some other fees. So that's like $40,000. So here we go. We're at 300. We're at $40,000. So now we're at 340. Oh, by the way, I still had my condo that I had to rent out, and I was thinking, oh, that'll be a part of my business. Now, if I was in my right mindset the last few years, I could have probably made that work and got a commercial mortgage instead of a residential mortgage, whatever. Listen, but I wasn't. So now you have, at that time, I had owed like $100K, and my house was kind of like underwater, so I couldn't sell it. So now we're at 340. Now we're at 440. Okay, had already paid off my car with a credit card. That's a whole nother story time. A few years prior, or maybe 2 years prior to that point. So now we're at $440,000. So how did I get over? Oh, my student loans. So that was back then it was about 46. Now my student loans is like almost 50. I put them in forbearance recently. Now we are at $500,000 in debt. Okay, y'all with me? And maybe even more than that. Hold up. I got to do my numbers. I'll do it and I'll calculate it for you guys. So I'm like, paying my bills. Life is good. I'm like sleepwalking. I'm the walking dead. Then first year, I get a call from my tenant, who's an amazing tenant. There was a flood. My son and I have been in 10 years. We never had any issues. Maybe a little spot on the wall, and I had to replace that part of the HVAC when I first got in there. My tenant calls, and I'm going to show you guys pictures right now. Okay, we're back. Each year, so I have rented it for about almost 5 years. This would have been the 5th year. Each year, there were one or two major issues at the condo that I filed insurance claims. So again, if it was under my business and I had different networks with contracting companies, you wouldn't do that, because of course every time you file an insurance claim, your premiums go up, and they can actually drop you. So that's in succession. So a lot of things were covered by the insurance when they finally gave me claim, and a lot of things weren't. And then I don't need to be a landlord, because sometimes, like, my renter was going through something. She's a wonderful person, but sometimes she didn't have renter's insurance. And I know people are like, well, that's not your problem. But again, that's why a person like me shouldn't be a landlord. Because I was like, okay, like, it's okay. Like, we'll make it work. And that's why I would talk in pronouns like that. That's not a healthy or probably a good professional or business, like, landlord tenant situation. Hence. And I didn't want to hire a property manager, one, because I wasn't making any money. That was the thing. She was a single mom. And I was like, I'm not going to raise the rent. So I didn't even have the rent at what it probably should have been. I just wanted to cover my mortgage and my condo fee. So then we had the inspection, what did you call it? The pest control, the ADT. I'm going to do a whole video breaking this stuff down. But now we're definitely well over $500,000. Then this is when so we're kind of getting into my spiritual rejuvenation situation. And I'm like, God, tithing, offerings, what's going on? Losing weight and things like that. I discovered keto. I just discovered God and reading his word. And so I started tithing, and y'all going to see this. I'm going to insert this probably about now as well. You'll see something about tithing. I'm like, well, this is interesting. Not really understanding, wanting to do it, but like, what is it? But you'll see my money management for 2019. I'm just trying to like budget. Then I start tithing. Then you start getting, am I tithing my net or my gross? I'm letting y'all see where I was growing like spiritually. But as soon as I started tithing, issues. You really think I had issues the last 5 years? Everything. My house started to break down. So then I was like, I was tithing, I was still being faithful, kind of wavering, doing a net, like, oh, okay, if I tithe on my net, then I'm gonna tithe on my tax refund. That's a whole nother discussion, guys. And so then I saw this lady at work who's a friend of mine. I love her. Lady at work who's a friend of mine. I call her Sunshine Walking. She's just, I don't know, she just helped me out spiritually. She's just like, look, you need to set it and forget it, especially if your heart's in it. And we start going over the scriptural, the doctrinal basis of like tithing and what it means. And again, this is not about your salvation, but this is literally about like faith, my faith walk, like my relationship with God. It's like, even if it's a faith of a mustard seed, it's like, this is where we want to be. And it starts with everything. And I told God I want him in every area of my life, just every area. And I want to listen and I want to be obedient. So she was like, look, just tithe gross, just tithe it automatic and off the top. So as soon as I started tithing, like issues, like especially with the properties that I had my own, and the rental it was crazy. But then I started tithing gross. And it was almost like I was playing like financial twister, because, or, the whack-a-mole when you go to the things, it's like, because my tithing was the exact amount I was missing every month. So I'm sitting there and I'm like this, and I'm struggling. Some of the videos, so I'm like sitting here, I'm like, it was one thing after another. So then there was another major flood again at the condo. Then I had a flood at my house. And then I had the HVAC go out at my house, which I had to get the whole system replaced. And then I had the HVAC go at the condo, so I had that replaced. And of course, it's my first where I'm like, yeah, I do financing. But it got to a point where I couldn't even finance anymore, because that has been my whole life. What's the minimum payment and can I finance it? I'm stuck. Then I just was like, oh, I'm going to try to get out doing a refi. And it was like, oh, you can't. It's like all these issues. I couldn't do the refi. So I'm like stuck. And I remember being at Toyota. I think my bestie, she had plans to take me out my last birthday when I turned 38. And I was just so over it because I couldn't even get credit from Toyota. Now, these car dealerships, anybody should be able to get credit. That's just how it is. You just got out of just like your work release, prison release or whatever, or job, you should get credit. I couldn't even get credit then. So I'm sitting there, I'm like, what is going on? And I realized that means I'm on the right track. Keep fighting through. So if you're having any sort of like struggles in your life, keep fighting through. So I'm just telling you guys where I'm at now, where we're all going. We're going to go. I'm doing the Dave Ramsey, which I discovered years ago. And I'm doing that full-fledged. I'm picking up extra jobs. I am but nothing can compromise my time at church and my time with God. So that's kind of where it is. And I'm now trying to figure out the rest of my life, going back to trying to incorporate my friends and a few family members that I do talk to. How do I get on a good schedule? Because I love them. You want to love the people that are in your life. So that's something that I'm working on. And just enjoy life. Like, take a walk, laugh at things, find your purpose, be on purpose, but realize that God He gave us the grace to be found. And if you were grounded, or there's a praying grandma, a praying friend, you will come to yourself. When you come to yourself, ask God for forgiveness, repent. That means turn away. Forgive yourself. And that's something I struggle with, guys. But forgive yourself and then get on purpose. Reach out to follow YouTubers or social media, or don't do any of that. Just make it in your mind that you're going to change. And when you have your mindset and you have your habits, man, I tell you, change is that is what change is. Change for the better. You are breaking curses. I'm breaking a generational curse. I'm part of that. I want to pass a legacy on to my son. I just want to love those that are just around me, and even the people that don't love me. But that's how you can end up in over $500,000 in debt. And the thing is, the number one thing, if you don't have God in your life, and if you're not following his principles, and I'm not talking about that fake superficial won't he do it, and you don't have anything behind it, because he will do it. But if you're just living the way you want to live, and you're not even with your heart, you don't have a heart for God, you're not trying, I don't know about that. I just know when you really take it in your mind to have a relationship with God, he will do it. But faith without works is dead. You can't expect him to just come and drop a bunch of money or whatever you may need, or mend relationships. You have to put the work in. So Mindshifters, just Paula, folks, I love you guys. I hope this has helped you. More than anything, it just lets you know how I got into this position. But moving forward, we're all going to be on just staying on our nutrition, staying encouraged. And I'm going to give you tips and ways of how to do that. And I love you guys. And if you need anything, reach out to me in the description below. We can do this, Mindshifters. I love you guys. You can do this. Just Paula. If you're lonely, we're about to get into the holiday season. I'm going to give you tips on how to get through that. Because if you don't have a spouse, or you're not close with your family, or whatever the case may be, it could be a time that, that loneliness can eat at you. And I want to help you get through that and share with you how I get through that period. Bye, guys. I love you.